Judge mocks Elon Musk with laughter in court, then reels in shock at his staggering legal mastery. The courtroom was wrapped in a tense silence, the kind that makes your chest tighten, as if the air itself was waiting for something to happen. The soft rustle of papers broke through as the judge flipped through a thick pile of documents on his desk, his fingers moving with a steady, almost mechanical rhythm. He stopped suddenly, his eyes fixed on the page in front of him, and a faint, knowing smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. A look that hinted he'd found something worth pausing over. The room seemed to hold its breath, every person inside, spectators, reporters, lawyers, locked in a quiet anticipation, waiting for him to speak. Then with a short, sharp laugh that cut the stillness, he lifted his head and zeroed in on the man sitting at the center of it all. "Elon Musk," he said, his voice firm and tinged with a mocking edge. "The brilliant billionaire who thinks he's untouchable by the law." Those words hit like a jolt. A few quick chuckles erupted from the packed gallery, spreading like a spark catching dry grass. The prosecutor, standing off to one side, flashed a broad, confident grin, his eyes glinting with the certainty that this day was his to win. The courtroom was full to the brim. Reporters lined the back wall, their pens scratching furiously across notepads. Camera flashes lighting up the space like a storm of fireflies, and rows of spectators leaning forward, whispering excitedly to each other. They all shared the same unspoken agreement. This was going to be a slam dunk. Musk, the guy who'd turned wild ideas into billion-dollar realities, was about to face a reckoning. The story felt set. His larger-than-life confidence would finally smash into the hard reality of the legal system, and everyone was here to see it unfold. But Musk didn't move an inch. He sat there, hands folded neatly on the table, his face blank and unreadable. No nerves, no defiance, just a quiet steadiness that stood out against the rising buzz. The judge's tone shifted, taking on a lighter, almost taunting note. "I hope you've got your game plan ready, Mr. Musk. This isn't one of your online back and forths. This is a courtroom." Laughter rolled through the crowd again, louder now, echoing off the high walls and filling the space with a sense of glee. The prosecutor straightened his tie with a quick, practiced motion, stepping toward the jury with a stride that radiated control, clearly ready to lock this down. Reporters scribbled faster, their notes piling up like evidence of Musk's impending fall. The tension climbed higher, the room thick with the feeling that this was the breaking point, the moment he'd be cut down to size. Right then, Musk decided to speak. He moved a little in his chair, got up slowly like he was in no rush, and faced the judge straight on. His voice was steady and calm, loud enough for everyone to hear without trying too hard. "If the law's a system," he said, "it's one that's way past its expiration date." The whole room went quiet, just like that. The laughter cut off fast, as if someone hit mute. The prosecutor's big smile faded, his eyes squinting like he couldn't believe what he'd just heard. The judge's little grin disappeared too, and you could see a quick flash of shock on his face. Nobody saw it coming. A short, simple line that flipped everything they thought was settled. In that moment, the sure thing everyone had bet on started to fall apart, and the courtroom got ready for whatever he'd say next. The prosecutor recovered fast, stepping up to the jury with a smooth, confident air. His voice was clear and steady as he began speaking. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, pointing directly at Musk, "we're here today because one person believes his wealth and status mean he doesn't have to follow the same rules as the rest of us." He paused briefly, letting that idea hang in the air, then turned to face the judge with a firm, unwavering look. "The evidence we've put together is solid and straightforward. Mr. Musk's company has broken regulations, ignored required legal steps, and acted like the law doesn't apply to them." The judge gave a small nod, his mouth curving into a faint smile, as if he was following along with quiet interest. "Mr. Musk," he said, his tone even and measured, "I'm sure you understand the gravity of these claims." Musk didn't reply right away. He stayed seated, his head tilted just slightly to one side, listening silently, his eyes locked on the judge without a hint of movement. The prosecutor pressed on, pulling a stack of papers from his briefcase and flipping through them with a careful hand. "This isn't just a one-off mistake," he said, his voice steady but firm. "This is a clear pattern, a choice. Mr. Musk has built his career on pushing past limits, but today he's facing one that won't give: the law." A soft murmur spread through the courtroom, voices mixing into a low hum of reaction. The judge looked at Musk again, his tone dropping a bit. "Mr. Musk, are you going to defend yourself, or do we need to explain how this works first?" The crowd chuckled, a quick burst of sound that carried across the room. Musk didn't budge. His face stayed neutral, his hands still folded, his posture calm and steady. The prosecutor kept going, his voice sharpening. Your Honor, it looks like the defendant isn't taking this seriously. Maybe he thinks he can talk his way out of it, like he does online. But here, we're focused on facts, not chatter. The judge leaned back in his chair, tapping his gavel lightly on the desk. I'm wondering the same, Mr. Musk, he said. Do you have something to say, or are we just spinning our wheels here? Musk didn't respond immediately. He sat there, composed and silent, his eyes fixed on the judge. The prosecutor wrapped up, his tone strong and direct. We ask the court to look at the evidence carefully and make a decision quickly. The judge nodded, his voice firm. Mr. Musk, you'd better speak up soon, or I'll start questioning why you're even here. Finally, Musk moved. He took a slow breath, stood up from his chair, and adjusted his jacket with a calm, almost routine motion. He stepped forward, looked directly at the judge, and started speaking. Your Honor, he said, his voice steady and clear, I'd like to thank the prosecution for putting together their case so thoroughly. But there's a problem. Their argument depends on a system that doesn't hold up under scrutiny. A few quiet murmurs rippled through the room. The judge's eyes narrowed a bit, his earlier lightness fading. Musk continued, taking a few steps as he spoke. They keep pointing to laws and rules they say I've broken, but their whole case assumes those rules still make sense today. The prosecutor let out a short, dismissive sound. Is that your defense, Mr. Musk? That the law's no good? Musk turned to him, his gaze steady. My defense is that you haven't sorted out the laws you're trying to enforce. The courtroom hushed again, the change in mood clear. The judge leaned forward, his attention sharpening. Musk picked up a document from the table and flipped through it slowly. This case is built on the idea that my company broke rules. But let's take a closer look at those rules. They were written years ago, back when the world was different, before the kind of work we do now even existed. They don't fit today's reality, and they don't even agree with each other. The prosecutor shifted in his seat, looking less certain. That's not true, he said, but his voice didn't carry the same weight. Musk raised a hand. Let's walk through it. If I followed every detail of this law, I'd end up breaking another one from the federal government. So what's the right move? Guess and hope. The judge's smile was gone now. He reached for his glasses, slid them on, and looked at the section Musk pointed to, his face tightening as he skimmed the text. Musk kept going, his voice even. Laws are supposed to be clear and consistent, like a set of directions that don't contradict each other. But this case, it's resting on rules that don't match up. The jury members glanced at one another, a quiet curiosity growing among them. The prosecutor tried to interrupt, but Musk pressed forward. You thought I'd stumble over the details, but I don't need fancy terms. I just need things to make sense. The judge sat back, his fingers tapping the desk in a slow, thoughtful rhythm, his earlier humor nowhere to be seen. Musk stepped closer to the table, pointing at the document again. Your Honor, check out section 42.3 of the law they're leaning on. It says something they've missed. The judge read it, while the prosecutor flipped through his own copy, starting to look uneasy. Musk paused, letting the silence settle, then said, This law they're using was written before the internet was even around. How can it apply to a company like mine? A low buzz of voices spread through the room. The judge's eyebrows lifted a bit, and the prosecutor opened his mouth but didn't speak. Musk continued. Think about it. How do you use rules that old to handle something new? It doesn't add up. The prosecutor cleared his throat, pushing back. Mr. Musk, that's a reach. The law still stands. Musk responded, his tone calm. Does it? Section 43.1 says if something new isn't covered by existing rules, you have to set up new ones first. They skipped that step. The room went quiet again. The judge's eyes darted over the text, his expression shifting. The prosecutor's confidence slipped. He hadn't caught that detail. Musk crossed his arms. So, Your Honor, are we here to enforce laws or to hold back progress because the rules haven't kept pace? The prosecutor stood up quickly, grabbing a fresh stack of papers, his voice loud but unsteady. Your Honor, we've got new evidence. This proves Mr. Musk ignored the rules on purpose. It's all here. He held up the documents, trying to sound firm, but his hands shook just enough to notice. Musk stayed calm, arms still crossed. Your Honor, he said, his voice even. Those papers were written after this case started. If they were so critical, why weren't they here from the beginning? The crowd murmured, the sound picking up. That's not evidence, Musk added. It's a last try to patch up a case that's falling apart. The judge turned to the prosecutor, waiting for a response. The lawyer stood there, silent, his jaw clenched. Musk spoke again, his tone steady but clear. You don't win by throwing things together at the end. You win with facts that hold. The courtroom settled into a heavy silence. The judge, who'd started the day with a grin, now sat thoughtful, his fingers tapping slower, more deliberate. Everyone watched him, holding their breath. The prosecutor shifted in his seat, his earlier swagger gone. Musk stood steady, hands on the table, like he'd seen this moment coming from the start. The judge took a slow breath, rubbed his forehead, and then spoke, his voice clear and measured. Mr. Musk, I'll be straight with you. I walked in here thinking you were just another big shot trying to dodge the rules. But you've turned this around. He glanced at the prosecutor, his look stern. The evidence they brought doesn't stand up. It's shaky, and some of it doesn't even check out. He tapped his gavel once, the sound firm and final. There's no basis to keep this case going. Mr. Musk, you're free to leave. The room stirred. Some gasped, a few clapped softly. The prosecutor's face went pale, his mouth opening but staying empty. Musk gave a small nod, like he'd known it would end this way. People started filing out, but the weight of the day hung in the air. Outside, reporters swarmed, cameras flashing, voices overlapping. Mr. Musk, how's it feel to win? One shouted. He adjusted his sunglasses and said simply, feels like reason got his chance. That line spread fast. Headlines picked it up, calling him sharp, determined, a guy who'd flipped the script. But it wasn't just about him. It was a sign. Maybe the system needed a harder look. Legal experts took notice, digging into what Musk had pointed out, talking about gaps in how things worked. Lawyers who'd been confident in their cases started double-checking their files, wondering if they'd overlooked something too. The judge, speaking later to a reporter, said, "He didn't just get off. He made us think twice about what we're doing." Musk, though, was already on to the next thing, treating it like just another day. The courtroom sat empty, but the impact lingered. The judge leaned back in his chair, replaying the day in his head. He'd walked in assuming he had it all figured out, but Musk had shown him something different. Smarts don't need a title. It was about spotting what's off and saying it plain. That left a question. How many other cases go wrong because people can't push back? The ruling was done, but the bigger talk was just kicking off. This wasn't just a courtroom win. It was a moment that got people thinking. Laws are supposed to keep things fair, but what happens when they don't match the world we're in? Musk didn't just save himself. He highlighted a problem that hits more than just big companies. Regular people, workers, small business owners, anyone trying to get by, deal with rules that sometimes feel out of step. It's not about breaking them. It's about asking if they still do the job they're meant to. Take a second to think about it. The world's changed fast. Phones in every pocket, cars that drive themselves, ways of working no one imagined 30 years ago. But a lot of the rules, they're still sitting there, written for a time when none of this was around. Musk's case put that front and center, and it's something plenty of folks can connect with. Maybe you've run into it, a policy at work that doesn't make sense anymore, a regulation that slows you down instead of helping you move forward. It's frustrating, right? That's what this was about, showing that gap, making it real. The judge didn't get it at first. He walked in ready to put Musk in his place, figuring this was just another rich guy dodging the consequences. But by the end, he was listening, really hearing it. That's the point. Sometimes it takes someone standing up to make everyone else pay attention. Musk didn't yell or dodge. He laid out the facts, showed where they didn't line up, and let the truth speak for itself. That's something anyone can take away. You don't have to be loud or flashy to make a difference. Just see it, say it, and stand by it. And here's where it hits home. How many times have you seen something off? A rule that doesn't work, a way of doing things that's stuck in the past, and just let it go? Musk didn't. He stepped up, faced the pressure, and turned it around. Not because he's got billions, but because he saw a flaw and called it out. That's not just a win, It's a push for anyone who's felt boxed in by rules that don't fit. You don't need power or a big platform to question what's fair. You just need to think it through and speak up. The bigger picture? This isn't done. The courtroom cleared out, but the idea stuck around. People started talking, on social media, at work, over drinks, about whether the system's keeping up. Legal experts are digging deeper, asking how many other cases might be off because the rules don't match reality. It's not about Musk anymore. It's about everyone. How often do people miss out because they can't push back? How many times do we let old ways hold us back when we could be figuring out something better? That's the real question this leaves us with. Not just what happened, but what we do next. So what do you think? Should laws change with the times or stick to what's always worked? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We're here to hear them. Share this video with someone you know. Let's get this conversation going, because the future's ours to shape if we start asking the right questions. This wasn't just one guy dodging a bullet. It was a heads up. Laws aren't perfect, and when they lag behind, someone's got to point it out. Musk did, and it paid off, not because he's special, but because he looked at the problem straight on. That's the takeaway. When something's off, don't just roll with it. Ask why, dig into it, and push for what makes sense. We've all got that chance to fix what's broken, one step at a time. What's your next move? Tell us, and let's keep this rolling. As the courtroom doors closed, the echo of the gavel faded, but the story lingered like a quiet challenge. Elon Musk's win wasn't just about escaping a legal bind. It uncovered a truth. Systems we rely on can fall behind if we don't question them. The law meant to guide us can sometimes trap us instead, clinging to a past that no longer fits. Musk showed that pointing out what's broken isn't rebellion. It's a step toward fixing it. That's the first lesson. Don't accept flaws as final. In life, whether it's a job, a rule, or a routine, if it doesn't work, call it out. You don't need to be loud, just clear and persistent. The second takeaway? Logic cuts through noise. Musk didn't win with flair. He used facts, plain and simple, to shift the room. Apply that daily. When you're stuck, step back, look at what's real, and build your case from there. Finally, this is about us all. How often do outdated ways hold you back?